Hello there, good evening. You're watching All 24 News, World News program broadcasting live from Algiers. I'm Karim Zachary, and these are tonight's top stories. Tonight, over 150 martyrs in Gaza as brutal Zionist massacres escalate. The occupation intensifies its ground assault in both the north and south of the Strip. Northern Gaza's hospitals are completely out of service, worsening the humanitarian catastrophe. Details just ahead. Also ahead, in Algeria, President Abdelmajid Tebboune pledges to better integrate university students into a dynamic, diversified economy. He underlines the role of higher education in driving national development. Meanwhile, Algiers prepares to host Islamic Development Bank meeting starting Monday. We'll have the details on these developments shortly. Also in tonight's headlines, in Libya, the Presidential Council unveils a new mechanism to uphold the truce and reinforce stability in Tripoli. The UN Security Council renews calls for a permanent ceasefire as Prime Minister Dbeibeh accuses rivals of plotting a coup against the unity government. And later in the program, in Morocco, a massive popular march shakes Rabat. Protesters reject normalization with the Zionist entity and accuse the Mahsen of misleading the public. Stay tuned, full details coming right up. Hello again and welcome back to the program. We'll begin with the devastating developments from Gaza tonight, where Zionist airstrikes intensified across the Gaza Strip, killing dozens and deepening the humanitarian crisis. The Palestinian Health Ministry says more than 132 people were killed and hundreds injured in relentless raids targeting residential areas. The bombardment comes as the occupation expands its assault on Gaza's already overwhelmed hospitals, sparking renewed fears for civilians trapped under fire in the besieged enclave.
Where are the Muslims? Where are the Arab nation? Don't they see what is happening to us? Every day children are being massacred. Women are dying. Where is their fault? Where is the fault of these children? What is the fault of these women? Isn't this unjust? Does no one see us? Does no one care about us? Are we just sheep being slaughtered?
Meanwhile, overnight, deadly Zionist strikes hit the Jabalia and Khan Yunis refugee camps in Gaza, leaving dozens dead and many more wounded. The intensification of night attacks is raising alarm, with observers saying the timing appears designed to maximize Palestinian casualties. Here's Salman Asib with the report.
Amidst a field of ruins, Palestinians from Jabalia stand still, reeling from violent strikes that hit their neighborhoods just hours earlier. Around 3 a.m., Zionist reconnaissance planes heavily bombed the area, plunging several families into mourning.
Around 3 a.m., we were sleeping when suddenly we heard a loud noise that shook everything. They are innocent. They died of hunger.
The same devastation unfolded at a tent camp in El Mawasi, where displaced families helplessly watch their fragile lives torn apart.
We don't know where the missile came from. My children and I were in our tent. The tent that was hit was right behind us. My son and my husband were injured. My father is dead. My mother is dead. And my niece lost an eye. What do they want with the children? Have pity on us. We've had enough. Shame on you.
The 24 Palestinians killed in El Mawasi were brought to Khan Yunis Hospital, where grieving families said their final goodbyes, like this heartbroken mother mourning her young son. He's gone. Ahmed. He's the light in my eyes, my support. Netanyahu fired a large rocket at my son and severed his head. My son slept like an angel. Nights of horror have returned, with violent attacks striking all four corners of the enclave. Over 150 Palestinians killed, 100 wounded, most of them women and children. 61 massacred in El Mawasi, 14 more killed in Khan Yunis, entire families buried under collapsed homes. Thousands flee once more as Zionist forces push deeper. 8 blocks, no food, no water, no shelter. Ceasefire talks continue, but for Gaza's people, the nightmare has no end.
In central Gaza now, occupation shelling left at least 18 Palestinians dead and many more wounded. Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital reported receiving the bodies of 10 victims from strikes on homes in Deir el-Bala. 4 more were killed in an attack on a gathering south of the city. And in a heartbreaking scene, a father and his 3 sons were killed when a tent was hit in Zuwaida, north of Nusayrat. Most of the wounded remain in critical condition meanwhile.
This morning we were shocked by the news of the martyrdom of my sister, her daughter, and her husband. May God have mercy on them. My sister loved life. They were asleep in their apartment like any married people, and at 4 a.m. they were in the street. The strike targeted this apartment, hitting the bedroom.
In northern Gaza, the Indonesian hospital is now out of service as occupation forces tighten their siege. The Palestinian Health Ministry says wounded civilians are being blocked from reaching the facility, and medical staff and supplies are cut off. It's the latest in a string of attacks on Gaza's health infrastructure. With all public hospitals in the north now shut down, authorities warn of a looming medical catastrophe and are urging immediate international intervention. In other development in Lebanon now, as tensions flared along the border Sunday, a Zionist drone strike injured 2 Lebanese soldiers. The army says the drone targeted a civilian vehicle near a checkpoint in Beit Yahoun in southern Lebanon. 3 people were wounded in the attack, including the 2 soldiers who were rushed to local hospitals. In another bold escalation, Yemen's Houthi forces say they launched 2 ballistic missiles at Ben Gurion Airport on Sunday. Military spokesman Yahya Sari' called it an act of solidarity with Gaza. While there's been no confirmation of damage, Houthi officials warned of a no-fly zone over all airports in occupied Palestine.
نفذت القوة الصاروخية في القوات المسلحة اليمنية.
The missile force of the Yemeni armed forces carried out a qualitative military operation targeting Lod Airport, which the Israelis call Ben Gurion Airport, in the occupied area of Al Yafa, using 2 ballistic missiles, one of which was hypersonic Palestine II missile and the other Zulfaqar missile. The operation successfully achieved its goal, thanks to God, and caused millions of occupying Zionists to rush to shelters and air traffic at the airport to stop for about an hour.
In other news, Algerian President Abdelmadjid Tebboune reaffirmed his commitment to strengthening the country's education sector and advancing towards a knowledge-based economy. In a message marking the 69th anniversary of Student Day, President Abdelmadjid Tebboune vowed to boost support for universities and create pathways for students and graduates to play a key role in Algeria's transition to a more open, diversified, and competitive economy.
I reaffirm the state's commitment to further advancing Algeria's universities and the broader training system across all levels and specializations, ensuring they are closely aligned with economic realities and the transition toward a knowledge-based economy. We are also focused on establishing an effective mechanism to integrate university students and graduates of vocational institutes into the momentum of these inevitable transformations toward an open, diversified, and competitive economy, particularly by facilitating and supporting the creation of small and medium-sized enterprises.
And on the same occasion, Algerian President Abdelmadjid Tebboune praised the country's success in building a strong national university system with integrated academic guidance. In remarks marking the 69th anniversary of Student Day, President of the Republic Abdelmadjid Tebboune reaffirmed the state's commitment to making higher education a cornerstone of Algeria's push to boost and diversify its economic activity.
You, my daughters and sons, the students, are fully aware that your great nation, with its glorious history, faced severe hardships and immense challenges in the aftermath of independence, as it sought to overcome the deep setbacks imposed by the abhorrent colonial regime. That regime pursued policies of ignorance and deprivation and attempted to erase our national identity and character, particularly through its assault on education and learning.
Algeria is set to host the annual meetings of the Islamic Development Bank starting Monday, drawing more than 2,000 participants from the bank's 57 member countries. It's the third time Algeria welcomes the event, which is expected to see the signing of key financing agreements and development projects. Zahra Farjani reports now.
In line with its commitment to strengthen economic integration among member states, Algeria is hosting the Islamic Development Bank meetings for the third time, reaffirming its status as a key economic and diplomatic gateway in the multilateral Islamic finance system and underscoring its ability to provide a stable, attractive setting for high-level financial dialogue.
This is the third time that the Islamic Development Bank comes and holds its meetings in Algeria. And this is proof not only of Algeria's importance, but also of Algeria's generosity and its concern for solidarity among the member states. From this platform, I thank His Excellency, the President of the Republic, the Algerian government, and the generous Algerian people for their excellent hospitality and superb organization.
The Strategic Forum offers a fertile platform for sharing insights on sustainable development challenges, crafting modern Islamic finance instruments, and widening investment horizons from digital infrastructure to clean energy ventures.
There will be signings of bilateral agreements between the bank and some member states for promising projects. The bank's 10-year strategic plan will also be discussed during these meetings. It is an ambitious plan that, God willing, will move the Islamic Development Bank into broader fields and horizons in assisting the member states.
Against the backdrop of rapid shifts in the global economy, attention turns to Algeria for 4 days as it stages the ISDB's annual meetings. The gathering is expected to culminate in a package of bilateral agreements that will channel strategic investment into member state economies, coinciding with the launch of the multilateral group's new 10-year roadmap.
Moving on to other regional developments now. In Tripoli, Libya's Presidential Council has launched a new mechanism aimed at consolidating the ceasefire and boosting stability in the capital. The initiative, backed by the United Nations Support Mission in Libya, comes after recent clashes rocked the city. UN Special Representative Hannah Tete emphasized full UN support for the Council's efforts, calling them crucial for lasting peace and security. The international community, including the UN Security Council, continues to back these moves to restore calm. In the same context, the UN Security Council has unanimously called for a permanent ceasefire in Libya and demanded accountability for attacks on civilians. Expressing deep concern over recent violence in Tripoli, the Council emphasized its strong support for a Libyan-led political process and the unification of military and security institutions. The members urged pressing progress toward lasting peace and stability, backing the efforts of the UN Support Mission and its special representative in Libya. Meanwhile, Libya's government of national unity head Abdelhamid Dbeiba has accused rivals in the House of Representatives, the Supreme Council of State, and retired General Khalifa Haftar of orchestrating recent attacks in Tripoli. In a speech to the nation, Dbeiba claimed these groups aimed to stage a coup using armed militias to forcibly seize control of the capital, escalating tensions in the already fragile political landscape. Elsewhere, but in Africa still, thousands of Moroccans took to the streets of Casablanca Sunday in a large-scale march opposing normalization with the Zionist entity. Organized by the Moroccan Front to support Palestine, the protest condemned the docking of Zionist arms shipments at Moroccan ports. Demonstrators demanded an end to all ties with the Zionist entity and protested the harassment and imprisonment of anti-normalization activists. Human rights groups and professional organizations also joined the call for solidarity with Palestine. On a related note, Moroccan activists have strongly rejected government claims that normalization with the occupation benefits the Palestinian cause. Speaking at a social media event, activist Rushdie Bouibri called out the Makhzen and its media for pushing misleading narratives. On the same occasion, Bouibri warned that Morocco is facing rapid Zionist infiltration aimed at undermining both the state and society, highlighting deep concerns over the consequences of official ties with the occupation. To other topical news now. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian declared Sunday that Iran will never abandon its nuclear program regardless of U.S. pressure. Speaking at the Tehran 2025 Dialogue Forum, Pezeshkian emphasized the program's peaceful nature and openness to inspections. He firmly rejected any notion of pursuing nuclear weapons and vowed that Tehran will not bow to coercion or threats in maintaining its nuclear ambitions.
We will never abandon our peaceful nuclear program, no matter what they say or do. They threaten us and talk about sanctions, but we have been under sanctions all our lives. And if we maintain good relations with our neighbors, they won't be able to do anything. Trump said they have to make sure we don't have nuclear weapons. Let them come and inspect however they want. We are not planning to build nuclear weapons, even if they move the sky.
This comes as Iran signaled readiness to reset ties with European nations amid looming threats of renewed sanctions. At a Tehran diplomatic forum Sunday, Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said Tehran is open to a fresh start if Europe shows genuine will and an independent approach. Araghchi called on European countries to take concrete steps to correct the current strained relations under the 2015 nuclear deal framework.
Iran is ready to open a nuclear chapter in its relations with Europe. If it senses a genuine will and independent approach from the European parties, the focus on differences rather than common ground in recent years has limited the ability to benefit from opportunities for cooperation. Nevertheless, if Europe possesses the necessary will to correct this course, Iran sees no obstacle to rebuilding mutual trust and developing relations.
Shifting focus to the war in Ukraine now. Russian President Vladimir Putin called for a ceasefire in Ukraine, but tied it to addressing the root causes of the conflict and guaranteeing Russia's security. Speaking in a brief interview on state television, Putin stressed that Moscow's goal is to create conditions for lasting peace while safeguarding the security of the Russian state.
The result that Russia needs from the special military operation is to eliminate the causes that led to the crisis and create the conditions for achieving lasting peace and ensuring Russia's security. The result of the special military operation must be long-term peace and the protection of the interests of the Russian-speaking population in Ukraine. It must ensure the interests of our people in those lands we always talk about, where people live who consider Russia their mother tongue and Russia their homeland.
And in the meantime, the European Commission says next week will be crucial for peace talks in Ukraine as a call between the US and Russian presidents is expected. EU Chief Ursula von der Leyen, speaking ahead of a meeting with US Vice President J.D. Vance and Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, emphasized the urgent need to ramp up pressure on Moscow to advance the stalled negotiations.
I would like also to raise the topic of Ukraine. What unites us is that we want a just and lasting peace.
Sure.
And I know how much you are engaged in ending this war, and I thank you for that. So what is important now is certainly that we push that things are moving forward, and I think the next week will be crucial on that.
And now it's time to catch up on more news stories making headlines across the globe with Sofiane Kanturi in the News in Brief now.
At least 14 people were killed and others injured in NRSF artillery shelling on the Abu Shouk displacement camp in Al-Fashir, Western Sudan. Hitting the Ivasha market, Darfur Governor Miniarko Minawi announced the Sudanese army has regained control of Atrun area in northern Darfur. Ukraine says Russia launched its largest drone attack since the start of the full-scale war in 2022, with 273 drones targeting mainly Kiev, Dnipropetrovsk, and Donetsk. Ukraine's health ministry reported that a woman was killed and 4 others injured in a Russian drone strike on central Kiev, which hit civilian buildings. Poland held its presidential election on Sunday with 13 candidates in the race. Polling stations were open from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. local time, with the results expected by Tuesday. The elected president will serve a 5-year term and oversee the country's defense and foreign policy. The Vatican on Sunday witnessed the inauguration of Pope Leo XIV, the first American pope in history, during a special mass in St. Peter's Square, attended by world leaders and prominent global figures. In his address to over 200,000 people, the new pope condemned economic systems that exploit nature and marginalize the poor, calling for the creation of a new, peaceful world.
And finally in our news, museums in a changing world take center stage as Algeria hosts landmark UNESCO Maghreb Summit to combat trafficking and boost regional heritage defense. Let's get all the details with Yassina Rikti now.
Algeria is currently hosting a high-level regional meeting dedicated to the preservation and promotion of museums across the Maghreb region. The event, held in Algiers, brings together representatives from Tunisia, Mauritania, UNESCO and Alesco with a shared goal to safeguard and revitalize the region's rich museum heritage. On the agenda are innovative solutions, including the integration of artificial intelligence into visitor experiences and the development of virtual museums, especially critical in times of crisis.
This is an important meeting point for the exchange of experiences between Maghreb countries. We are meeting today to discuss the 2015 recommendations of the UNESCO Committee on the Protection of Museums. I presented Tunisia's experience in preservation.
From Mauritania, Sidi Abdullah al-Bukhari emphasized the urgency of action.
This is an important meeting in anticipation of recommendations regarding the preservation and protection of our heritage, much of which has been looted.
UNESCO representative Karim Handeli also joined the discussions, underscoring the importance of cross-border collaboration and the role of culture in sustainable development.
We are really very pleased to be here in Algiers because this meeting on museums, the first of its kind in this region, organized by our office, is important because it comes first in the framework of the celebrations this year of the 10th anniversary of the recommendation adopted by the General Conference of UNESCO in 2015 on museums, but also because this recommendation brings a new way of looking at museums.
The first day was marked by active participation and open dialogue, with all eyes now on the concrete recommendation expected to emerge. Recommendations that could help restore Maghreb museums to their rightful place at the heart of society.
And with this, we reach the end of our news program for tonight. For more updates, don't hesitate to check our social media platforms as well as our website. I'm Karim Zachary, signing enough on behalf of all 24 News team. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, have a good one.